Hello, everybody. Welcome again to another episode of the Electric Oofaloos podcast. I'm Duran Barron, joined as always by
Dominique,
Joseph,
and your boy Dave.
Dang, I did the wave again. We did the wave
I know,
again.
we both waved.
always wave.
We're waving at you guys. All of you, 4 listeners right
We
now.
love all of you.
All of our listeners, and it's perfect because first thing on the list is congratulate anyone who listened to our last episode, who made it all the way through, who listened to us talk
Hopefully
about
you
Howard
didn't
the Duck.
Watch it.
Hopefully you didn't watch it.
Don't
You just
watch it.
you could listen to our podcast a total of
listen to the
4
podcast.
times in the
Don't
time
watch
that
it.
it would take you to
And you
to
get a
watch our
lot
podcast.
more out of it.
You get a lot more. And today we are very excited because we're talking about not just a movie, not just a game, but an IP that we're all big fans of, and we're talking about Scott Pilgrim. And unlike Howard the Duck, this movie is absolutely fantastic. The comic book is fantastic, and lately we've been discovering the game is absolutely fantastic.
I think
It's
Let's make that a word, guys.
Fast. Hashtag
Fantastic. So, a little backstory for those of you who may not be familiar with Scott Pilgrim. Scott Pilgrim was originally...
First of all, fix that. Second.
That's why...
That's why they're listening.
Exactly. So, Scott Pilgrim was originally a comic book series that started in 2004, written by Brian Lee O'Malley. I think there are 6 volumes in the comic book series. And then the movie came out and was adapted by Edgar Wright, who's my personal favorite director, in 2010, and quickly became a cult classic. We are fresh off watching it again for who knows how many times we've seen it now.
The second
I
time.
could probably count
Well,
it, but it's been a fair number.
So, we've all seen it multiple times now. What is it about the Scott Pilgrim movie that keeps us coming back? Our disc acted up, and we had to watch the same scene about 4 times in a row. We laughed
every time.
What is it about this movie that keeps us coming back, that keeps us laughing every time we watch it?
I mean, it's really funny.
I think it has to do with that real-world fantasy-esque feel. It's a character who lives in the real world, but doesn't exactly live like a normal person. So they're still they still are a normal person, but they have an elevated lifestyle that we all kind of slightly wish we could have.
I mean, I've fought the exes of
Well,
all my exes.
let's to give further backstory for those who may not be familiar with it. Dominique, could you explain what the basic story, what the basic premises of Scott Pilgrim?
For sure. So basically, Scott Pilgrim, our hero/loser hybrid, he falls in love with a girl, Ramona Flowers, and eventually discovers that in order to date her, he has to fight off all 7 of her evil exes. Defeat all 7 of her evil exes. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's a lot more deep and nuanced than that. But that's, overall.
So, like you guys were saying, it's about Scott Pilgrim who lives in the real world, but he also is Canada.
Is that the real world?
That's
Is
a good
Canada
question.
real?
That's a fair
Is
point.
None of us have ever been.
I've never been to Canada.
I've never been to Toronto, Canada.
There we go.
It could be nowhere.
Next on our conspiracy theory episodes, is Canada real?
Is it Atlantis?
Is it Atlantis?
That's just a theory.
The world members.
A game. Movie? Book theory? I don't know. Food theory.
So, Scott is this hero who lives in the real world, but has these fantastical video game styled powers, and there's a lot of video game aesthetic in it. And I do agree that I think it's partially this augmented reality that he lives in that's so appealing visually to us, right? And of course, the classic hero's journey where he gets the girl at the end, and after all, it goes through. So, here's the question, then.
For us or the viewer?
Food for thought. But mainly for you guys, since you guys are actually in the room with me Our viewers are not here, unfortunately.
Oh, that's unfortunate. We
Which
wish
is
you guys were here.
unfortunate. So, Dominique,
Yes.
you've read the comics.
Yes.
What are some of the biggest points where the movie is different than the comic book?
Oh, there's so many. So first off, every single character gets like a fleshed out plot, as well as like satisfying for most of them, like character arc that's resolved. Since I mean, in a 2-hour movie, you can only do so much. In 6 books, you can do a lot. So each character is way more developed in the book, which I mean, I think they're still well developed and put together in the movie, but so much more time is given to them. Like Kim, who's the best character, they all just get a whole bunch more, and it's beautiful.
Right. That's, none of us, besides Dominique, have actually read the comics. It's been on my list for quite some time, but I haven't read them yet.
I'm looking to.
They're so good.
I think we all should. So, first and foremost, and let's talk about the acting, because there are some really great performances in it. And once again, to Dominique, how do the actors do portraying these characters in comparison with their comic book counterparts?
That's a good question. Let's see. I feel like Michael Cera is very good as Scott. Reading the book, Michael Cera's Scott's a bit more whiny as well as smarter than Book Scott. Book Scott's a bit of an idiot. Like, a bit of a big idiot. Like, watching the movie, he actually solves...
So he's your general protagonist for a comic series.
Like, in the movie, he actually solves a lot of the fights, like, thinking outside of the box in a smart way. Book Scott would never do that. Like, he doesn't... No.
So, how does he win the fights? Is it just
Most of them are actually in fighting.
Oh.
Yeah. Like, a couple of them are through by...
He just wrecks them.
Basically, are through like smart, like the skateboard scene for Chris Evans is what's his face, Lucas Lee.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same one in both senses, but a lot of them are just more fighting. But I think everyone else is like pretty like spot on,
Including Ramona.
Oh yeah. Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Ramona. She's really good. In fact, I probably like the movie Ramona better than book Ramona.
Oh, interesting. So what about you guys? David, Joseph, who's your favorite characters? Why? And how else does the actor do? What is it about these characters you guys like so much?
Go ahead, Joseph.
I think if I had to pick a favorite, it would be Ramona. I think that she just portrays like something that I can feel slightly like related with. Like with a lot of the other characters, for me at least, I look at them and I'm like, oh yeah.
Because you two are a female girl who has 7 X's you have to fight.
Definitely. You guys
We're
are
working on it.
You'll have to beat them up soon. Mm-hmm. They're kind of jerks.
Yeah, I really do.
What about you, David?
So my favorite's probably Knives, just because for those of you who don't know the story, Michael Cera's Scott. Yeah.
Scott?
Yeah. But he starts dating Knives, which is his high school girl, and they make fun of him a lot for it, in the movie at least. And as time goes on, he meets Ramona, and Knives just kind of gets pushed to the side. And Scott doesn't even tell Ramona, or doesn't even tell Knives he's breaking up with her until well after their first, I think it's their second date. Yeah. But at the end, Knives has basically more mature than everyone else in the movie, I think. Even though she's still a high schooler. And she just has a really cool premise that she kind of pops out of nowhere with a bunch of knives and starts slashing people up. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So, would now be a bad time to interject with Knives versus Ramona here, or should we wait?
You can go ahead.
Okay.
You can go ahead.
So, one of my, not qualms per se, but the books, as I said, completely gives a good character arc to both of the characters. Like, Ramona and Knives' relationship is given a definitive and fairly well handled, kind of funny handled, end, where he ends up with Ramona after finally fighting all of the evil X's. It feels completely earned and like the right way to go. The movie kind of wobbles back and forth. Like when you're watching the end, you kind of feel like, oh, he's going to end up with Knives because they do the double tag team thing. And if I remember correctly, that's the original ending they shot. But then test audiences were like, "What? But he's been fighting for Ramona the whole time." And they reshot the ending to have him end up with Ramona.
Which would explain kind of the abrupt ending.
Yeah, because like you kind of get that feel watching that end, and then he still ends up with Ramona, which story wise makes sense. Movie wise, I feel like I don't know. I feel like maybe he should have ended up with knives. I feel like that hammers home the whole, despite outside of the kind of gross weirdness of her being a high schooler. Outside of that, I feel like that's kind of the point the movie tries to hammer home. Like he helped Ramona, and got all over her problem. Well, not all of her problems. All of her exes sorted out, so she's free to just begin life anew, and go on to just do whatever she needs to. While Scott and Knives are still like good together.
Yeah, absolutely. That is interesting. Because I definitely like the idea. Of course, I want him to end up with Ramona at the end. But it kind of puts him in an interesting perspective if he didn't, because then you're right, he would have freed Ramona, and he would be more of this kind of superhero in a sense, doing something.
A hero for justice rather than
justice.
I feel like
strong guy for
I
himself.
feel like it completes his character arc a bit better in the movie if he ends up with Knives. Not necessarily saying that I want that, obviously, and I love the ending both in the book and the movie with him and Ramona. It's just such a sweet ending. I love it so much. But I think the character arc works better with him ending up with Knives.
See, I love the stuff with Ramona. I think she's such an interesting character. But some of my personal favorite characters are kind of more down to earth, more, I guess, realistic characters. So my personal favorite is Wallace. Just every scene that he's in just cracks me up every time. Everything about him, everything he says.
In case you guys were wondering, it's a joke with Wallace that we kept laughing at earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
Just kept skipping.
It was Wallace every time. Got us every single time. I think his character's great, but I also love the other bandmates. I love Kim. I love Steven.
And Young Neil! Young Neil!
Just great characters, and they're kind of very, down to earth.
Kim is the best man.
So they add kind of this interesting contrast to Scott and to Ramona and these other characters, the exes who have these incredible powers, just kind of show up out of nowhere. You go into this movie without any context, you're going to be confused as heck when Scott freaking punches a dude in the face, like flies through the air.
Oh, it was so good.
Yeah, I will admit, my first time watching it through, that was like a really confusing. I was going through watching it thinking like, oh, it's going to be like a Napoleon Dynamite-esque film. And then suddenly he starts like destroying people, and they start literally exploding into money.
Yeah,
it's so dope.
So let's talk about another big aspect of this movie, and personally one of my favorites, the soundtrack.
Bro, Black Sheep is such a good song. That final, not final, but the guitar licks after the like bridge right at the end, where it's like down, 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 down. You know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. Oh, every time I'm like, pure auditory.
So it's one of those ones that makes me want to pick up a guitar again. It's just.
So what would you describe the music as? Like what genre?
I think I'm more rock.
It's some kind of
majority
rock.
of it's a
I can't quite
punk, more
alternative
rock.
I wouldn't go punk rock, but I'd say alternative rock.
Alternative rock is probably a good description of the soundtrack.
What's the best Sex Bomb song?
Garbage Truck.
Yeah, taste. That's what I'm saying. I love Garbage Truck.
I do too. So the music is integrated into the movie in some of the most brilliant ways. Another one of my personal favorite scenes is when Scott and one of the evil exes, Todd, have a bass battle, and they both hop on their bass and they just rip into it, and it just sounds so cool. Like the dueling basses, the duet between them, it's very, very good, very well thought out. It's not like they're playing two different things, but I was paying attention to it this time. They actually match together. Scott is playing a very basic bass line, usually just one or two notes alternating. And then Todd, on the other hand, is playing these incredible solos over top of it. And it just meshes together, and it just sounds so cool. And I'm also a sucker for bass. I love a good bass line.
I think the moment, speaking of music, the moment I when I was watching, I'm like, I'm really gonna love this movie, is right at the beginning when Kim's like, "We are a sex bomb," and counts them off, and they start into their first song. I don't remember which one it is, but and it like slowly backs out away from them, and like you get this full like wide shot of them playing in their living room, and then the title card shows up.
It's very
It's
stylized.
so good. It's so stylized. It's a beautiful movie.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness.
So, David, do you have a favorite part of this movie? Is there a favorite? What is your favorite thing about this movie?
My favorite thing about this movie, I think there's a lot of things that I really like about it. But one of the more, like, not nuanced, but out there parts of the movie is the fact that whenever any character gets defeated, they turn into a pile of coins. And the coins just kind of explode everywhere. I just like the concept of beating someone up so much that the coins fall out of their pockets. Like,
Out of her hair. Just so many good parts of that movie. It's brilliant.
Once again, if you haven't watched it, you need to go and watch it.
Is it on Netflix still?
I
can check. Hold on.
I don't know if it's on Netflix anymore, but either way, it's worth at least renting, if not just buying it for yourself. It's a great comedy, a lot of style, a lot of good music. It's a good time.
And if you play video games, it's going to be a hit.
Video games, music, and because my drawing was the whole music angle. Like that's what I was going for.
Which leads us into the next, which is the video game that we've been playing. So the video game, Scott Pilgrim the video game, was originally released in 2010 for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. It's a kind of old school retro side-scrolling beat 'em up where you can play a set of the characters including Scott, Ramona, Kim, Stephen, Wallace, etc. And like I said, it was released over 10 years ago with the release of the movie, after the release of the movie. And this past year in 2020, both the movie and the game hit their 10th anniversary. And so they announced that they were going to re-release the game for Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and Nintendo Switch. And I got it on my Switch, and I started playing it a bit, and Dominique got it on his PlayStation 4, and we hooked up the 4-player co-op. And I think it's safe to say that we've been having
so much fun.
a great time. I mean, it's worth mentioning that both Brian Lee O'Malley and Edgar Wright were both producers. They both helped on the creative side of developing this game as well, which is kind of cool. So, what are you guys' opinion? David, you're kind of the video game expert here, if I may say so. What is your general opinion on Scott Pilgrim, the video game?
So I really like it. I went into this game blind. I didn't even know there was a video game until Dominic brought it up and we hooked up the 4 controllers to it. So I didn't know anything about this game going into it. But
I think that's the way to go into it, though.
Yeah, it definitely is. So if you plan on playing the game and you don't listen to the
it's only $15.
It is
worth
$15.
it.
It's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth it.
You hop into this game, you choose your character, one of the main characters from the story, the film, and then you just walk around for a little bit until you find the first enemy. And at that point, with all 4 of us, we can just beat up the enemy. So we all just kind of gang up on this enemy, and it's just so much fun just beating him up together. I think it's part of the art style.
Not letting them down.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's the art style, and then when we figure it out, we can pick people up and then beat other people with them. We had so much fun. It's just doing that for like 20 minutes, just beating people with other people.
As you go through the game, you start to unlock different move sets. So whereas in a lot of games, you kind of start off with all of the moves you can do, and it's just learning it. This one, you start off at level 1, and you only have like 2 or 3 moves. You can run, punch, and maybe do a block or something.
Like now.
And then as you go on, you level up and you learn different moves that you can use, and you have to learn how to use them in battle. I'm still trying to figure out the counter.
If you're familiar with Castle Crashers, it's very similar to Castle Crashers in that style of side scrolling, leveling, the abilities and everything as such. And these guys have been saying it's been absolutely a blast. So what do you guys think of the difficulty of the game? We have it on the easiest difficulty. Do you guys think
So I've personally tried it on the hardest difficulty, and I wouldn't say The difficulty is not in their movement. It's just in how much life they do have and how much damage they deal. So if you have a good skill, like I know David, he can just go back and forth and not get hit by them and just beat them up. David, I think, would do fine. Whereas me, I'm more of an in the middle, and I beat them up before they can beat me up. And on the harder difficulty, I got wrecked.
I think a big part of what makes the game difficult for us is that we didn't know until recently, like a couple minutes or 20 minutes ago, that the way you level up your stats is by buying items in the store, not by leveling up. And so we've gone around with basically base level stats, beating up increasingly difficult people.
To be fair, we've done a pretty decent
We
job.
have. We managed. I think, did we get a game over once?
Yeah.
We game overed once. Well, that's it.
I think we're on, like, what, 4th, 5th Evil Exile?
Yeah, we're about to fight the twins.
Yeah. And how about the soundtrack?
It's great. Just old 80s and 90s side-scrolling beat 'em ups that are so much fun. I played the TMNT console one at my dentist's for like years with my siblings, and playing this just reminds me so much of that. It makes me very happy.
The music definitely fits the game very well.
Yeah, it's definitely a very retro arcade shooter, or just an arcade soundtrack. A lot of 8-bit stuff, which is honestly a lot of fun. And it fits very, very well with the game. It's a lot of fun. And how about the style of it, the aesthetic? What do you think this would be?
I'm a sucker for the 8-bit, for the pixel games.
It's definitely, it's not 8-bit though.
It's not 8-bit.
16, 64?
It's probably
32?
Yeah, it's a pixel game. It's like
32-bit?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Something like that.
Somewhere around there.
It's very retro style, but not just the visual aspect of it, but some of the gameplay mechanics, as they were saying, is very much inspired by some of these older games.
Arcade games. Yeah, it would work really well to be played on an arcade.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I would love to see an arcade release. If they released like an arcade machine version of Scott Pilgrim,
we might have to buy it.
Like,
guys.
I don't know, we'd have to throw down like $500 somewhere.
It'd be so worth it.
It would be so nuts.
So what do you think about the game, dude?
I'm a big fan of it so far. I really enjoy good couch co-op games. And honestly, this game is... It's made for couch co-op. Honestly, it's probably fun by yourself. Like I said, I did a little bit on the Switch, and it's fine. But like...
all 4 of us going in is just...
doing it with at least one more person is the way to go. It honestly is the way to go. And it's definitely meant to be played that way, with friends, with even acquaintances, and they'll become your friend. Or depending on how many times you pick them up and just throw them around, maybe you're in it.
It's like Super Mario Bros. Wii, man.
Yeah.
It can go either way.
So, and Don, or not Don, sorry, Joseph, you actually tried out some of the other game modes, didn't you?
Yeah, so there are a couple other game modes. There's a boss rush, there's a zombie survival one. I found those kind of fun. With the zombie survival one, you get that feeling of always being outnumbered, but you are totally better than them. They're all kind of slow. They don't attack as fast.
Take that, zombies. We're better than you.
Whereas with the boss rush, it's what it sounds like. You're rushing all the bosses consecutively without any time to buy anything. And when I went in as a level 0 for the boss rush, which means I can't buy any items, which means I can't get any of those stat boosts. So I was going in basically as a level 0 character, dealing with all the major bosses that you have to deal with. And I found it fun, but I've always found the challenging things pretty fun. So
along with it being kind of this retro style, it also makes a lot of references and callbacks to other retro style games. How many have you guys picked up on?
I've been picking up on all the ones that are from the books. Like, I don't know about anything, because I'm not,
we found out that it follows the code.
Yeah.
It does have the code. That's true. What's it called?
I'm not sure what it's called, but it's up, down, down, left, right, start, I think?
Yeah.
In this case,
we don't have
it's the block button,
Right.
And that code, it insta-kills the person that does it, but it drops a ton of coins.
And it only works on Scott Pilgrim, interesting. It hasn't
reason.
worked on any
We
of our
haven't, or if you can do it on another character, we haven't
figured it out. Exactly. I've personally noticed a lot of callbacks to the Mario games, like the blocks that you come past, you beat them up, the blocks. And
The turnips we picked up.
The turnips
That
we
was
picked
funny.
up.
That is one I picked up on.
Super Mario Brothers 2.
There's actually a Rainbow Road type.
There's a Rainbow Road.
The subspace highways like Rainbow Road.
Looks exactly like Rainbow Road. There's just so much, and like we said, it's a lot like the old Ninja Turtles games, that style, or Contra. And so it's just been wild to kind of watch this, and there's just so much that you pick up on. And once again, like the movie, we definitely would recommend this to anybody. Kind of going away from Scott Pilgrim, but talking about these retro games still, because Scott Pilgrim itself, in the book, in the movie, in the game, it pays homage to a lot of classic video games. Even in the movie, there's a lot of classic Mario noises that it uses as sound effects. And recently, a lot of these retro style games have been making kind of a comeback. Have you guys noticed this at all?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely have.
What is it about these retro styles, this 80s, 90s nostalgia that brings in people from both that generation and our generation who never grew up with that stuff? What is it about it that just pulls us in and entices us?
That's cool.
For me specifically, I have a computer that literally cannot handle a lot of those higher end games that we go in. So I only can play a lot of these ones. And then when you go in and it's a good game and it requires you to learn to get skilled at it and all of that other stuff, it just pulls you in. It makes you want to continue every time you hit that challenge that you can't beat. It's like, if any of you have played Undertale, you hit that boss and it's like, oh, dang it, I want to beat this. I want to get through this.
I think there's a charm to these retro style games. With the aesthetic, with the music, with the gameplay, it's simple. It's not as complex as the newer, more modern AAA games. There's no sliding or no grappling hook and a ton of abilities. But it's just got this charm that makes it fun to play, even without all these bells and whistles that the newer games have. I think a lot of indie studios are picking up on that. I think Hades, it's not as retro looking, but it still kind of got that retro feel to it.
And it's fantastic.
One of my favorite things about the retro games that a lot of the higher end games don't do is they have a lot of these little secrets and cheats and little things that you can do just to have fun. And a lot of those bigger games just don't have that. And you end up kind of like, whenever you run into one in one of these more retro games, it's like, oh my gosh, they have this! And it makes me happy.
Yeah. I, of the four of us, have by far the least amount of gaming experience, by far. And so I'm still kind of just feeling things around. But I'm a sucker for a good aesthetic. Tron Legacy is one of my favorite movies, for instance. And it's at least 75% just because the aesthetic of that world is absolutely brilliant. And so for David was saying, with some of these games that have just a good aesthetic and commit to it and really work with it, it's just it's rad.
I definitely think it's a breath of fresh air for us. We watch E3 and you see all these new games coming out. More recently, some of the biggest ones: Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Cyberpunk 2077.
Last of Us Part 2.
Last of Us Part 2.
That
These massive, sprawling games that are just almost seemingly overwhelming. I love this stuff. But when you hop into something one of my favorite games, I love playing Super Mario World on the Switch. They have the Switch emulators for the NES, SNES. I love the old Mario games because it's just a breath of fresh air. You can pop in, pop out whenever you want. You can just go through this charm, like David said, to kind of memorize these levels. And like Dominique or Joseph said, I did it again. I'm having a rough time. This desire to go on, to keep going. You gotta get that level done. And I think Scott Pilgrim does a very good job in the game. Kind of installing that nostalgia for a time that we've never lived.
I know. We had to tear ourselves away from playing so we could come record this.
Exactly. And we're definitely going to keep doing it. We're about maybe halfway through the story mode. But honestly, there is a lot of content there just between probably replayability value and those.
Yeah.
So,
I think it'd be fun for us all to go into the zombie mode. That would be fun. To see how long we can last.
That about wraps up our time for today. And once again, we hope you enjoyed. We hope you made it this far. If you didn't make it this far, can't say I blame you. But we're happy you did. Oh boy. So it's
what a move.
what a move.
Wow.
But we're happy you listened to it, and we're happy to receive any and all feedback. Most of you who are listening to it at this point
Probably
know us personally. Probably acquaintances, if not close friends and family to us.
Or enemies.
Waiting for that blackmail.
But we always appreciate feedback from anyone who, once again, makes it this far, or who doesn't make it this far and just knows that we're already asking for feedback. But of course, feel free to...
Or doesn't know and wants to give it anyways.
This
is the internet, ladies and gentlemen.
So, as always, feedback is appreciated, whether it's in comments or messages to us. We'd love to hear what you guys think that we're doing well, when we're not doing well, what you think we should talk about, what we shouldn't talk about anymore.
Recommend us some movies.
Recommend us movies, games.
We've got movie recommendations.
We've got movies
We're looking at
out
me
the
and
wazoo.
Games, I don't know about y'all. I don't know, because games are hard to do.
Hey, those people out there know stuff that you don't, man.
What?
Coming up, hopefully we're going to have...
Are you sure?
Hopefully we're going to have an episode about Stardew Valley. Another one that we're really excited to do is the Knights of the Old Republic MMO that we've been playing a lot. We're going to have some meme movies coming up that we're very excited to watch. Potentially some Bollywood.
Baby.
And, we're just excited to do this, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
Yeah. Seriously, watch Scott Pilgrim, play Scott Pilgrim, read Scott Pilgrim. It's all fantastic. It's literally all of it.
Absolutely. All right.
And watch the Godzilla vs. Kong trailer.
Which should come out today. Plug for Godzilla vs.
rad.
Kong. It looks great. All right. Well, then, we'll catch you guys next time.
Stay safe, don't die.
Stay safe.
That'd be sad.
Don't die.
See ya.
Be sad.